Hello everyone, I am Dr. Santosh Kumar, orthopedic and joint replacement surgeon based in Kolkata, and presently I specialize in hip and knee replacements. Previously also we have discussed multiple orthopedic topics and made videos out of it, and today we will be discussing mainly on the problems pertaining to the hip joint, specifically the hip arthritis and the treatment of hip arthritis. Hip joint, as you know, is the biggest joint in the body. This is the hip joint. It's a joint, the junction where the pelvis and the thigh bones meet. So this is the hip joint. So we have two hip joints, right and left, and hip joints are the biggest joints in the body. Based on that hip joint, we are walking, running, sitting in chair, and we are mobile because of this hip joint. So hip joint can suffer multiple problems. Number one of them is fracture or a trauma, which normally appears with the senior citizens. They tend to have fall indoors and they may suffer from fracture of the hip joint. So that's a different topic. We have discussed it earlier. What are the treatment options for fracture of hip joint? So today we will be discussing mainly on arthritic problems of the hip joint. Well, hip arthritis means destruction of the hip joint. So this hip joint can be destroyed or affected because of multitude of reasons. So to grossly we can classify it as something under developmental, congenital and age related. First we will see what is this age related changes of hip joint. Well, hip joint is subject to wear and tear the way any weight bearing joint is subjected to, the way our car tires are subjected to wear and tear. Similarly, hip joint is subjected to wear and tear, and this wear and tear leads to primary osteoarthritis of the hip joint, which is age related. But luckily in our subcontinent, in our country, in our area, primary osteoarthritis of hip joint is very rare and we tend to see specific arthritis. So that is the problem. But the unfortunate part of this secondary arthritis or specific arthritis is that it affects the younger population. Like we see multiple cases of ankylosing spondylitis, avascular necrosis. So all these types of hip arthritis, they affect the younger population, people who are in the productive years of life, people who are in the active years of life, rather than osteoarthritis which affects the older population or the senior citizens. So this specific arthritis affects the younger population. The specific arthritis that we see 20s, 30s or 40s, they may start with developmental dysplasia of hip. Well, what is developmental dysplasia of hip? Developmental dysplasia of hip is congenital dislocation of hip which has not been treated or neglected, and then it presents later on as a shortening of the limb and a high riding hip joint. So that is known as developmental dysplasia of hip. There are certain genetic arthritis that we see, like ankylosing spondylitis. Ankylosing spondylitis is a genetic disease. It's related with the gene HLA-B27. In this disease, the spine and the hip joint become arthritic and they start fusing. So initially, to start with, the hip joints, the pain starts. This pain initially to start with is only while walking, then it starts, the rest pain also starts, and the person starts to have an antalgic gait. What it means is that person starts having a painful limp. That painful limp is the characteristic of hip arthritis. And as the arthritis in ankylosing spondylitis progresses, it may go towards a complete fusion. So initially it starts with pain. What are the symptoms of this arthritis? Well, this arthritis can be ankylosing spondylitis, this can be avascular necrosis, but the symptoms are more or less similar and the treatment is also similar. Only difference is that in ankylosing spondylitis, not only the hip joint gets affected, the spine also, entire spine also gets affected, and in avascular necrosis, only the hip joints gets affected. Well, in avascular necrosis, what happens? The blood supply of the femoral head is jeopardized because of many reasons, and most of the times it is not possible to find out why it happened. So that is known as idiopathic. So unknown reasons, the blood supply is jeopardized and then the hip joint gets destroyed, gets eroded, and that leads to arthritis. So this also leads to arthritis in young population. That is the problem. So hip arthritis in our subcontinent mainly affects the younger population, the people who are still young and active in the active years of their life. So the person normally presents with antalgic gait and like a painful limp. There is a painful limp and there is restriction of movement. Initially the end of the movement is restricted, then gradually person finds it difficult to sit on a low chair, to sit on ground, to sit cross-legged, it becomes extremely difficult. Gradually the patient finds it difficult to sit even in a normal chair or sit on a bed, and then gradually it starts affecting the activities of daily living. So the basic issue is that it starts affecting the activities of daily living, and once the activities of daily living are affected, we need to do hip replacement. We need to replace the hip joint. The pelvis joins the thigh bone, that is the hip joint. So this is the hip joint. It's a ball and socket mechanism. So there is a ball which is the femoral head. The femur is the thigh bone, that the topmost part is known as femoral head, and that forms the ball, and then we have socket or the cup. So this is a ball and socket joint, and this is a normal ball and socket joint. So this is the femoral head, and the cup is the acetabulum, that socket is the acetabulum. So this normal joints is covered with cartilage, and gradually it starts getting, this cartilage starts getting destroyed, and the hip joint starts getting destroyed, and once this starts, it becomes very painful, and the movements are extremely painful. So person finds it difficult to move the hip joint and walk, and there is shortening because of this destruction. The leg shortens, there is 1 to 2 centimeters shortening appears on that side. So this is hip arthritis. So hip arthritis, it doesn't develop over a few days, it develops over years. And once the activities of daily living, the professional life, the social life of the person starts getting compromised, then we have to replace this. We have to replace this with a new ball and cup. So that is what is known as hip replacement. This is the basic implant of a hip replacement. So this is the ball, and this ball has got a stem. This is the stem. This goes inside the hip joint. This goes inside the femur bone. And this is the cup. This cup goes inside the acetabulum. So this cup comes here. This cup goes inside the acetabulum, and then there is a bearing surface. So bearing surface is the surface where actually the movement takes place. This is the bearing surface. This bearing surface is highly polished, and it has to be very, very smooth. So this femoral head, which is the bearing surface, and this is the acetabular cup, which is the bearing surface. So these two form the bearing surface. Now this femoral head bearing surface can be of two types. One is cobalt chromium. Why cobalt chromium is used? Because cobalt chromium can be most highly polished. It is a most highly polishable metal alloy. And this part is normally made up of titanium. And the second thing that is most highly polishable is ceramic. So the femoral head can be made up of ceramic, or it can be made up of cobalt chromium. Both of them are equally good, but yes, ceramic may be marginally better. And this part, the stem, is made up of titanium. This cup, again, it has got a metal shell, and then it has got a liner. This is a liner, which is a bearing surface. This metal shell is made up of titanium. This liner is made up of either ultra high molecular weight polyethylenes, like we can call it colloquially plastic, ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, or it can be made up of ceramic. In olden days, this also used to be made up of highly polished metal, but now it has been discarded. So this liner is either ultra high molecular weight polyethylene or ceramic itself. Now, as far as the types of implants that we used are concerned, these implants can be put in the bones. Either it can be press fit, scratch fit, means it is exactly same size, same dimensions as the bone, and it goes and fits inside. It is snugly fitting, that is known as press fit or scratch fit. Or it has to be put with something called bone cement. We put bone cement and then we put the implant. So these implants are of two varieties: cemented and uncemented. If we use bone cement, then it is known as cemented. We put bone cement, and then the implants are polished. They are polished and tapered. And if it is scratch fit, snugly fitting implants, then it is porous coated, means it's all rough finish, and then it is coated with calcium hydroxyapatite, and the bone ingrows on that. What happens in this is that the bone ingrows on that. So decision to use a cemented or a uncemented implant is completely a doctor's decision, and we see that if the bone is not strong enough to hold it scratch fit or press fit, then we use bone cement. Using bone cement is a very standard technique of using doing hip replacement. And of course, if the bone is strong enough, we prefer uncemented or a snugly fitting scratch fit implant, because once the bone ingrows on that, the implant life is supposedly better in a porous coated implant than in a cemented implant. So these two are the basic types of implants. So just to have a look, this as we saw, these are the basic components of the implant. This is the stem, this is the ball, this is the liner, plastic liner, and this is the cup. So all these things can be cemented. The model that I showed you was basically uncemented, and this picture is cemented. This is polished and it is cemented. So this picture again shows the basic component of the implant. This is the stem, which is in this picture is porous coated, highly porous coated, so that bone ingrows on that. This is the head. In this picture it's made up of ceramic. It can be either of ceramic or it can be of cobalt chromium. This is the liner, which is made up of ceramic, or it can be ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. And this is the metal shell, which is again highly porous coated, and it has holes for screws, so that screws can fix, it can be fixed in the bone with additional screws if needed, or preventive also many times we fix it. So this liner can be ceramic or polyethylene. I personally prefer polyethylene because I prefer hard on semi-hard surface. If we use both ceramic, like head as well as if the liner, both of them are ceramic, then it may cause a squeaking sound. So I prefer it made up of polyethylene. So again, these are the basic components. This is the cup, which is highly porous coated, and it has got holes inside it for putting screws for additional fixation. And this is the stem, which is highly porous coated, and this is the head, and this is the liner. Well, several times we decide based on the situation which type of implant has to be put. Well, hip arthritis causes painful limp. A person is suffering with hip arthritis will suffer painful limp. So they will limping gait. There, the affected limb, the side on which hip arthritis is there, that leg gets shortened. So there is limp, and because of shortening, there is limp, and the movements are affected. So person will not be able to sit on chair, or on normal movements are affected. Well, hip replacement surgery is one of the most successful surgeries in medical science today. It's a life-changing surgery in the sense that a person who would have been suffering because of hip arthritis, who would not have been able to sit properly in a chair, who would not have been able to do activities of daily living, suddenly starts walking painlessly and in a stable way from the very next day of surgery. So it enables a person to restore painless and stable movement. It enables a person to go back to his personal and professional life, and it's really a life-changing surgery. As we saw, hip replacement surgery, hip implants are of two types, cemented and uncemented. Mostly in older population we use cemented, and in younger population where the bones are strong we use uncemented implants. In uncemented implants is porous coated, and as we saw, and bone ingrows on that. So uncemented implants are generally preferred, and presently we use large head implants so that the range of movement is increased. So this large head implants leads to increased range of movement, and presently we are using all large head implants. In this picture we just show that how increasing the head leads to increase in the range of movement. So the higher the head size, more is the range of movement. So we have been using large head, and this large head implants is also possible because of good poly sizes that we are getting nowadays. Nowadays we are getting marathon poly, highly cross-linked poly. So this also is an allowing us to use large head implants. Well, this decision is taken based on the medical fitness of the patient who is undergoing hip replacement. The advantage of doing both hip replacements together in single sitting is that both the limb lengths are restored, and it is easier to mobilize. It's easier to make the person walk and return back to normal life if both hips are operated in, and both hips are normalized, and both hips are operated in the single sitting. So as far as the rehabilitation part is concerned, it's easier if both hips are operated in the single sitting. The limb length equality is restored. But there are medical issues. So generally if the person is young, we prefer to do both hip in single sitting. But if a person is older than 50-60 years, then we may have to do one by one, and there are other factors that we also need to consider. It's a cumulative decision which way to go. Normally in younger people we do both hip replacements in single sitting, but in slightly senior or in obese person, body weight is also a criteria. If a person is obese, very obese, then we may need to do one by one. We may not be able to do both hips in single sitting. So unlike knee, where we prefer to do in single sitting, hips we have to decide case to case basis. Only if a person is young and not obese, then we do in single sitting, otherwise we do in two sittings. The day after hip replacement surgery, we mobilize the patients. Like if I have done hip replacement today, we will make the patient walk from the very next day. So if today is the surgery, from tomorrow we will make them walk, and first 1 or 2 weeks we use a walker for walking. And in general the guide is more the person walks, the faster is the recovery. There are very few exercises. The leg exercises are there, like we do hip exercises, we do knee exercises for muscle strengthening exercises, and the more the person walks, the faster is the recovery. So first 1 or 2 weeks we use a walker. After that we can discard the walker, and the person can join office by around 3 to 4 weeks. And like let's say person can start driving by 6 to 8 weeks, person can start cycling by 8 weeks, a person can start running and jogging by 3 months. So a person is allowed to play non-contact sports also after 3 months. And with the large head possible, it is possible to sit cross-legged, but sitting on ground should be avoided as far as possible. Well, after a surgery, a person can do unrestricted walking, stair climbing, person can do unrestricted running, driving, cycling, swimming, everything can be done. Sitting cross-legged on bed and sofa is allowed. Sitting on ground should be done as little as possible, and squatting should be completely avoided. Other than that, most of the activities which a normal healthy human being does can be done after hip replacement also. Yes, of course. Any joint replacement, and more so hip replacement, is completely precision based. It is the precision which is important. For example, these components have to be a proper size, proper placement, inclination, angle. Is a millimeter angles that are very important. So to get that, we use this computer assisted navigation system. So computer assisted navigation system helps us to put the implant sizes correctly and accurately, and that is very important in our setup. Before surgery also we try to do true size x-ray, and we try to do a process called templating, by which we measure the implant sizes. Well, the most important precaution after surgery is one should not squat. Other than that, most of the things person can do gradually. Like with the present large head, you can put your leg in any position you want. So most of the things, whatever a normal human being does, can be done after hip replacement surgery gradually. One should avoid squatting. It has been our endeavor to provide the world's best at the most affordable prices right here in Kolkata, and we have been doing it. We have been doing surgery for anybody who needs it, whatever the budget may be. And every insurances have their own packages, and we follow that packages, whether it's a government insurance, national insurance, whether it's a state insurance, we follow that packages, and we try to do cashless within that. And if a person is not having any insurance, we try to do in the most affordable way. And all the way while we try that, we give them the best, the safest and the guaranteed results. So for us, the quality of surgery is most important. But on average, a hip replacement surgery in Kolkata costs around 2 lakh rupees inclusive of all, while using uncemented implants. While using cemented implants, the cost may be slightly lesser. Cemented implants are slightly cheaper than uncemented implants, but whether to use cemented and uncemented implant is completely discretion of the surgeon, and it is situation specific. It's not that one thing is better than other. The uncemented implants will last at least 40 to 50 years. But one thing we must know is that we should do the surgery whenever it is needed. For example, if a person needs surgery at 25 to 30 years of age, it should be done, because we have to keep the person painless and stable. So we have to keep the person moving in the productive years of life, when a person is socially, economically and professionally productive. So we need not worry about what will happen after 45, 50 years. And most importantly, what we need to know is that all the implants can be revised. Suppose if something happens after 50 years, 40 years, it can be redone. So it can always be redone after 50 years, 40 years, and 40 years, 50 years is a big time. So revision hip replacement surgery is equally successful, and there are specific implants for that, so we can very well do that.